Hi everyone, it's Phil with Maintain Moto, and let's take a look at how you can use Maintain Moto in a situation where you're wanting to buy a bike. And this is a true example. I was looking at a bike, I ended up not buying it, and one of the reasons was the records were simply not there. So let's take a look at what you can do if you're considering buying a bike. So the first thing is this was a motorcycle in my example, and it was a 2018 BMW K1600 GT. Now, the interesting thing about this bike is I did not know too much about it until I started looking. And once I started looking, I realized that there's some fairly serious maintenance costs that go with this bike and things that absolutely need to be done on this bike, particularly as it builds out the maintenance schedule here, particularly this one right here, which is valve clearances every 12,000 miles. This task is anywhere from $1,200 to $1,400 depending on where you take the bike. And I went to look at this particular bike, and the guy had all the records. They were in disorder. They're in different places in his house, paper records. And he said, well, that valve clearance check was done at a different dealer in a different city. Um, so he wouldn't be able to get the records. And I said, well, if you don't have the records, this bike has 40 some odd thousand miles on it. This was supposed to have been done, at least 3 times, coming up on 4. And you have no evidence of this ever being done. Now, the fact of the matter is the valve clearances rarely go out of whack and, even well beyond 100,000, but they do have to be checked because there's no other way to know that everything's good. They don't, the bike doesn't smoke, it doesn't start, sputtering, it doesn't make any funny noises, it doesn't show up when you do a scan. It just has to have been done. And the only way to prove that it's been done is by marking this as complete and say this is done. And then the person would, attach the invoice saying that the valve clearances were done. Well, he could not produce any evidence that the valve clearances had ever been done. So, to take it in tomorrow and say I need valve clearance check done, and it's probably going to be fine, but that was going to cost $1,400. But it also gave me the feeling that this guy probably skipped doing these valve clearances, and you can't really blame him because it's $1,200 every time. And so a lot of owners of these K1600 bikes will actually skip that maintenance just because of the cost. But it sort of tells you that you're dealing with someone that maybe doesn't take maintenance as seriously as you do. In the end, I walked away from the deal. It was on Facebook Marketplace. I watched that bike sit there for probably another 4 or 5 weeks, and the cost kept coming down until finally someone bought it. But yeah, he was not able to come up with the records. I walked away from the deal. I think that's a great example of why you need to keep records of all your maintenance with Moto Tracker, and you won't be in that situation.